What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Knives of the Round Table. My name is Marco, and today we are doing a nice one. This is the Custom Knife Factory brand overview. So, Custom Knife Factory is a company out of Russia, and the way they operate, for the most part, I think entirely, but for the most part, for sure, is by doing collaborations with different manufacturers and not knowing with different manufacturers, with different designers. And what they do is they do a collaboration with one designer. They produce, I don't know, it's 200-300 knives, and then they move on to a collaboration with another designer, and they go through that, and because of that, their knives don't have flavor. They look very different. Blade shapes, sizes, lengths, opening mechanisms, builds. Everything is very different. I think the only thing that they probably have in common is the quality of the knives. So this is my collection of Custom Knife Factory knives, and I think it gives me a fairly good feel for what the brand does right, for what the brand could do better, for a recommendation of a knife in this lineup, and to tell you if there's an iconic knife in their lineup. So let me show you what the knives that I have here. So this is kind of a triple corroboration. So this is the Sokosha, and this is obviously Custom Knife Factory, Tony Marfione, and it is a combination of I think it's the Makosha, the Socom Elite from Tony Marfione, and Custom Knife Factory. So this is that collaboration with Tony Marfione from Microtech. This is kind of bronze stone wash, drop point, black DLC blade, carbon fiber inlays. It's not an integral knife, but the back spacers really, it's continuous for the most part. It's really nice. You got a glass breaker and a Damascus pocket clip. Really awesome knife. And this is a liner lock. So that's the first one. Then we have a Peter Rosenti collaboration. This is the Satori 2.0. This is the baby brother, okay? It's a perfect size for me. I wear large hands, and I consider this a full-size knife. I think that the large brother to this is huge, but what you've got is like kind of this recurve compound grind with kind of these aggressive lines. I mean, it looks like a bat out of hell, right? It looks like an angry knife. So this is a titanium frame lock. It is an integral titanium frame lock. As you can see, we don't have any. You don't have a backspacer. This is all a solid piece of titanium. You do have this kind of integrated steel lock bar insert. It's kind of unique in that usually it lives on the inside of the titanium. This they put it kind of on the face. So this is the Satori 2.0. This is the collaboration with John Sorensen from Rotten Design, and this is the Evo 2.0. And when I started collecting knives, the Evo 1.0, which is a larger version of this knife, and it has kind of a swedge indentation here around this area, it had already occurred. So this is, I was only able to nab the 2.0, and you've got this tall hollow grind, kind of sheep's foot, semi-cleaverish reverse 10-toe blade. It's awesome. Here we have the Rampage, and I encourage you to go look at the review that I did of the Rampage, because there's a lot of details that go on with this knife that don't come that are not self-evident from just looking at it. I don't think this might not be a collaboration, because I don't find any other markings on this side, which is usually where they do the. This might be an original CKF. This is another Peter Recenti collaboration. This is the Snafu 3.0. Again, this is the smaller baby brother to the Snafu 2.0, which was a beast. And what you've got here is, as you can see, you've got this fuller that is kind of that kind of lives in both. You've got this cut off swedge that you see in both. This one is a more streamlined a classical blade, as opposed to what you see there. It is still an integral titanium frame lock, and here you can see a little bit better what I said about the steel lock bar insert integral with the lock bar. So that's the second Recenti, and this one is a front flipper liner lock, and this is the collaboration with Philippe Georget. This is the 520, yeah. And what you have here is a bolstered carbon fiber liner lock that is only a front flipper. I think some people can spidey flick. I can't spidey flick mine, but I think it's mostly meant to be a front flipper. So that's what I have. So I think we have thumb stud only deployment and thumb stud only deployment. These are flipper only deployment. This has middle finger flip deployment only and front flippers. We've got liner lock and liner lock. We have titanium frame locks for the rest. So we've got 2 integral knives. So I think this covers a large swath of what Custom Knife Factory does. We've got some kind of silky finishes on the blade. We've got kind of belt satin on these blades, so, and DLC. So I think this gives us a little bit fuller understanding of everything that the brand does. So let's start with what I think that the brand does right, and I think there's a lot, okay? And I think that one thing that the brand does right is variety, right? You could spend all of your knife capital and collection budget on just collecting Custom Knife Factory and never get bored, because of what I just said. You've got front flippers, you have integrals, you have different blade shapes, you have different blade grinds, finishes, thicknesses, lengths, sizes, weights, deployments, and you would never be bored. Okay, the variety on Custom Knife Factory, because they do collaboration with so many different people and so many different designers, they don't have a stamp of their own, or at least not that I can see. You can see the Recentis, right? It looks similar. There's similarities there, but other than that, there's just no similarities between these knives. So variety and the ability to collaborate on so many very different knives, I think is something that the brand does very, very well. Another thing that I think that the brand does really, really well is fit and finish, and they are outstanding knives. Quality of these knives, I would say that it's probably a step up, somewhere between a Rick Kinder knife and a Koenig Arius. Okay, probably living in that, which is outstanding quality, to an outstanding company to be in. And I think what they do is even more impressive than either of those two. See, because Koenig, he does essentially two models, right? The Goblin and the Arius, and I think he's coming up with a mini Arius. But for the most part, he does an Arius, right? And he's been perfecting the Arius, right? And over making many of them, you can fine tune your processes. You can see where the mistakes are, and you can try and correct them. It's similar to what Grimsmo does, right? They only have the Rask and the Norseman, and they've been making them better and better and better and better over making thousands and thousands of knives. And you can say the same for Spyderco or even Benchmade. Not the case here, because they make 200 of the Sokosha, right? This is number 21, and then and don't quote me on the 200. It's somewhere around there, 200 to 400. Call it whatever you want. I think it's in that neighborhood, in that range of numbers. But then, all that they learn making the Sokosha does not transfer to this, right? This is a frame lock. It's an integral. It has different groin lines. It has a different design. It has a different locking mechanism. It's different size. It doesn't have a glass breaker. It doesn't have inlays. So they have a lot less runway to achieve the same level of quality, if that makes any sense. Again, the same thing happens here and here and here and here. So the fact that they're able to get to that level of quality of almost Koenig Arius without and kind of being a little bit over Rick Hinderer knives. Rick Hinderer, he has been doing the XM18. There's 6 generations of the XM18, right? And there's just even for something like the Snafu 3.0, right? It's the 3rd iteration. The 1.0 to the 2.0 to the 3.0, they're different knives. They're not the same size. They're not so you can't transfer, from one to the other. Obviously, the experience of making knives is always valuable, but the experience of perfecting a single design, a single knife, is something that Custom Knife Factory doesn't get. So again, the fact they use a much smaller runway of 200 to 300 knives to achieve outstanding levels of quality, and I think that's something that the brand does incredibly well. I think so. Fit and finish, and along with that is action. The action on all of these knives, whether it's thumb stud deployment, whether it's a finger guillotine that you get from an Evo like that, and it's a middle finger flick, to the thumb stud only, to the front flippers, it's just incredible. The action on these knives is outstanding. Most of these knives are in the $650 range or thereabouts, and in the secondary they usually skyrocket to about $800 to $900 depending on the knife. So I think that the quality and the action and the fact that they don't make very many of them makes them very much collector's items. They're harder to find, especially in the secondary. You try and find one and they're usually gone within minutes. So I think so again, action, fit and finish, variety are all things that the brand does incredibly well. Now, what could the brand do better? Oh man, I mean, there's always one thing that they make more knives, right? There's always one thing that they cost a little less. But for the most part, I think that there's not a lot of things that this brand does wrong. I think the designers that they're choosing to work with make incredible designs. I like a lot of them. I've had the chance to buy the Citadel. It's huge. It's much bigger than even this one. and so I passed on that one. I had the chance to buy the Brutus, and I passed on that one. But there's very little drops that I don't try to actually get. So I don't think there's a lot of things or I don't think there's anything that Knife Factory does wrong. I think their fit and finish, their quality, their action, their variety is just outstanding. I think they do a great job. One of my favorite brands to collect for sure. So iconic knife in their lineup. I'm not gonna say that it reaches iconic level, but because there's very few and because they skip from one to another, I think that the knife that approaches iconic without quite getting there just because there's not enough of them, I would say is the Evo, the Evo design. I think the design of the Evo is much different from the design of all of the other knives. Obviously, I'm not gonna say that the Sokosha and the Rampage are the same, but they have similarities, right? Drop point, swedge, more of a classical look of a knife. The Resentis, it's a classical knife with. I'm not saying it's a copy of anything else. It just follows more traditional knife lines, and I think the Evo, and in this case the Evo 2.0, but I think it applies to the 1.0 and the upcoming 3.0. I think this is a very recognizable design, and I think that if I were to call any knife, getting that iconic badge, I would call it on the Evo design. At least, I think that if you ask the general collector to give you an example of a CKF knife, they'll be thinking of this one is the one that I think most people will be thinking of. So I don't think it quite gets to iconic, kind of like a Zavenza or an XM18 or a Para 2 for that matter. It doesn't reach the iconic just because there's not very many of them. But I would say that this is probably by far the most recognizable knife in the CKF lineup. That's my opinion. I didn't take a poll or anything. And then what I usually finish with in my brand overviews is which knife in their lineup do I recommend, right? Do you go with a fifth? Do you go with the Evo 2.0? Do you go with one of the Resentis or a Sokosha? And my best advice, in all honesty, is to get whichever one you can. The drops, they don't happen often. You have to kind of be on the ball to kind of snag one of these. But I would say get whichever one you can. Whichever one comes next, snag one of those. It's very likely that you'll either like it or make a profit by sell on the secondary market. I don't usually sell my knives on the secondary market, as you can clearly see, but the people that do sell them is usually for a higher price than they bought them from. So I would say give them a shot, and I don't think you'll regret it. The stuff that you can get from Custom Knife Factory is just amazing. Obviously, if you had to just, if somebody was showing you this collection and told you to pick one, I would say go find an Evo. It's just an incredible knife. The edge on this thing, the cutting of this thing is just ridiculous. But I think they're all outstanding. I'm really, the Rampage is really growing on me. So guys, hopefully this gives you a little bit of an insight into Custom Knife Factory. Hopefully you can snag one of these for your collection. They're Grail knives for sure. And good luck out there. It's not easy, but I promise you they're worth the pain to go find them. Guys, hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you did, then like and subscribe, and I'll see you at the next one. Take care.